Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed? Yeah. You know, I was talking to Mrs. Finelli just a couple minutes before the broadcast, and she said, would you ask Dr. Shealy about this? My fingernails are growing like crazy. My toenails are growing like, look at my hair. My nails are growing. My hair is growing. Is it that scalar energy? Yeah.
As far as I can tell, mine's growing faster, too. I have to get a haircut every 2 weeks instead of every 3.
That's what I'm talking about. And, you know, I've got to get one, too. Geez. Her hair looks great. Her fingernails look great. So do you think that this is part of the scalar energy device that you and Lou Cassidy have worked so hard on?
Well, I can't imagine what else it could be. That's the big change.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's pretty exciting. I mean, is there a thought that maybe for someone who is balding or is bald, is there a possibility that there could be?
Well, I haven't noticed that. My bald spot is as big as ever, but who knows what will happen in a year.
Okay, so I was just wondering if you found that there is a correlation with hair vigor and fingernail vigors. What do you think that means? Does it mean something? Because I'm cutting my fingernails more often too. I didn't quite correlate it as my wife did. She said, "Wow, this is unbelievable." What does it mean in terms of health, having your fingernails grow faster?
Well, you know, interestingly, fingernails are sort of, if you will, the least live part of our body in many respects. And, you know, you cut them off and it doesn't hurt. So it has to mean to me that the general overall metabolism is improved.
Okay. And by that, are we saying that our utilization of the food that we're eating is improved? Is that what you mean by that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking forward to a little less than 9 months from now, learning what the results of this year-long study. How many of us are involved in this besides Mrs. Finelli, me,
12.
you? 12 people. Okay.
12 people. Let's see. It's mostly couples, but then I'm in it, and my daughter Laurel is in it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm really anxious to hear what you found out as a result. Okay. Dr. Shealy, I was thinking about some of these stories that I'm reading on the internet, and it has to do with some really vile things. There are people who are killing their family members, their loved ones. And so here's an example. There's a 23-year-old guy, and he went on Facebook to make a confession. And his confession is, I shot and killed my mother and a friend, and now I'm off to commit suicide. So this person in Tennessee is 23 years old. There's a multi-state manhunt going on for him. And he said, I shot and killed my mother and a close friend of mine with a stolen .22 long rifle. Now, I'm not sure if that's a 22 LR is a cartridge, but I'm not sure if he did it with a pistol. or a rifle at this point. And he went on Facebook to say that he did this, and he's going to take his own life. And he talked about, well, let me tell you what he says. He says, late Sunday afternoon, he took to Facebook and wrote, "This morning at around 1:30, I shot and killed my mother and a close friend of mine with a stolen .22. I spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of time thinking about murder, wondering what it feels like, but I've barely felt anything." He goes on to say that they found his vehicle and then explained in detail what happened. He said that his mother was at a sports bar. She came home drunk like she always does, and he just decided to shoot her. I guess my question is, this seems to be really different from anything I've heard about when I was growing up.
Well,
is there something going on with medicine?
You didn't have the pharmacomafia as active when you were growing up. I'll give you 1,000,000 to 1 odds that he's on antidepressants or other mood drugs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's where I was going with this. I was driving. I think it was one of those holidays where you go see the family. I believe it was Easter, and this was a couple decades ago. And I was on a multi-lane interstate, traveling down this 4-lane road. And this was one of those roads that had overpasses, and cars would drive over the overpasses. And there was probably maybe several hundred feet in front of me that was no cars, maybe 500 feet. And I saw this man at the railing of the overpass. So you could walk on the overpass. He jumped off the overpass and landed right in front of my car. I would have been the first guy to run this guy over. And I have a feeling that's what he wanted to have happen, because why would he jump off an overpass? I mean, I think he wanted to make sure that if he got banged up, the next vehicle coming would crush him. And true story. And so, of course, I slammed on the brakes. I avoided him, put my flashers on, got out of the car, stopped everybody. I took charge and, got people to assist. And then we were done. The ambulance came, that kind of thing. Is there something that triggers a person to commit suicide? Because that's not the first one that I've experienced. Not in my family, not my children or my parents, but another one. Let me explain the next one. So a relative of mine, her husband died. And after a while, she went to one of those church kinds of meetings, parents without partners. And she met this guy, and, they saw each other, and they'd help each other and take care of each other's children. They both had jobs. They were about the same age. He had a government job. She worked for corporate America. And they would leave their house together in separate cars. I mean, they'd leave at the same time, off to work. And one day, he said, I'm going to stay a little later, and during their breakfast. And so she went off to work, and then she said, something doesn't feel right. So she came home. The car was in the driveway, his car, and he hung himself in the basement. And I believe he was on antidepressants. I really do, because I heard rumblings of that, and this is decades ago. What are your words of wisdom, Dr. Shealy, for those who are on antidepressants
Well, there was a report that came out just yesterday of how difficult it is to get off that crap. And, of course, it doesn't do any good for depression. I mean, it makes people slightly less depressed, but more morbid. Basically they really need a cranial electrical stimulator and other holistic needs. There's no other treatment for depression that's worth trying. Not a drug in the world would I go near.
What about going outside and fresh air and sunshine and being with other people?
For people who
is there something?
None of that works. They don't care. They have no zest for life.
And let's say a person were having a party at his home, and one of these depressed people walks in. Is this the kind of feeling that person just walked in and sucked all the life out of that room? Is that what we're talking about?
You bet.
Okay. So that would be a description of someone who is really depressed.
Yep.
Jeez. Very, very sad. I just can't imagine what that would be like to live like that. So cranial stimulation, would that be like the LIST cranial stimulator that you talked about?
That is correct. Now they need some supplements also. Tryptophan, lithium orotate, some B complex to optimize everything.
Lithium orotate. You recommended that probably years ago on the air on this broadcast, I'm sure as well as on yours. And I gave my mom some, and I recommended that one of our friends on the East Coast who has an elderly mom consider listening to the broadcast, and if it made sense to him, maybe consider that as well. And all the results seem to be really positive, more alert, more zest for life, more memory, focus. Is that what it does?
Yes. Serotonin is what I call the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed wake-up hormone.
Mm-hmm.
And healthy people, when they wake up in the morning, have the highest level of the day. And it'll stay up there until at least 4 p.m. And then it begins slowly to go down until bedtime. They convert to melatonin.
Okay, so when is the best time to take lithium orotate?
Well, it doesn't matter. The lithium is a mineral. Therefore, I don't think it matters whether you take it morning or night. B complex and the tryptophan you would take in the morning.
Okay. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, normshealy.com. We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor. And if you'd like to get the same newsletter that I get, just go to normshealy.com, normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, you mentioned B complex. I take B complex many times a day, probably 2 or 3 times a day on average. And I feel that I have more energy, more alert. I can get more things done. It makes you urinate a little more, at least it makes me urinate a little more, and changes the color to a more of a yellowish rather than a clear. Is that what B complex is supposed to do? Give you more energy, more alert? And I think it even improves my vision, after staring at the computer monitors for, several hours during the day. Does it also have that effect?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what is your recommendation for B complex? How often should a person consume it? Are there any contraindications? Are there any recommendations for maybe not consuming it?
I don't know any recommendations for not consuming it. I recommend for the average adult who has no problems, 25 milligrams a day of all the Bs, the basic Bs. Now, of course, with B12 and folic acid, it's different. There you take 1 milligram. But up to 100 milligrams of all of the Bs is safe long term. Okay.
I was reading some articles, recently and over the years, and you read articles that say, coffee's good for you. No, coffee's bad for you. Coffee's good for the heart. No, it'll cause a heart attack. And then you read articles that say, vitamins and supplements, absolute waste of money, and there's no reason to take supplements.
Well, they're stupid. That is, ignorance is failure to accept fact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They are unbelievable. You may tell any of them they're stupid, and I'll be happy to tell them too.
Yeah. Well, I've if that were the case, I've been wasting money for decades, absolute decades. And one of the things that I started taking many decades ago was cod liver oil. There was a guy on the radio who was broadcasting out of one of those big stations in New York City, and we could catch him on skip as the signal bounced off the ionosphere, so you could catch him states away. And this guy's name was Dale Alexander, and he called himself the cod, C-O-D, father. And he said cod liver oil is like the best single thing that you can take, for it will make your skin more elastic, it'll keep you more youthful. And so I've been on cod liver oil since the 1960s. And some people would say, wow, you don't look like you're 65. And I attribute some of that to cod liver oil. Is that possible that Dale Alexander was right as the cod father with taking cod liver oil as a supplement?
Well, I personally don't prefer cod liver oil, and the main reason is vitamin A. Fish liver oil, vitamin A, can be potentially toxic when you get to 10,000 units or more a day. And I prefer to get my vitamin A as astaxanthin or beta-carotene and not as the form of vitamin A itself. Other than that, the D part is okay. But in general, you don't get enough D out of cod liver oil anyway. And so I prefer to take D 50,000 once a week and astaxanthin 20 to 30 milligrams a day.
What I found in way before I met you, decades before I met you, I found that my joints were like I would have joint pain in my knees. And when I took cod liver oil, it went away. Absolutely went away. Do you think that could be psychosomatic, or could that be true? Can cod liver oil actually lubricate or the joints, or maybe reduce inflammation?
Yes, it mainly reduces inflammation. It is the single greatest anti-inflammatory and immune enhancer that we know.
And are you saying that's cod liver oil?
Well, cod liver oil is safe as long as you don't get too much regular vitamin A from something.
Oh, okay. Dr. Shealy and I will be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, and he's right again, of course. Dr. Shealy has been mentioning to us on this broadcast the toxicity of sugar, and sugar is a poison. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Right now, we've got Dawns to you. Welcome, Dawns, to you.
Hi there. How are you today?
Very well. And you, Dawns?
I'm doing very well. I have a very nice little gift to send in on the air today to Dr. Shealy.
Wonderful.
I just I had spoken and thanked Dr. Miller last week, and Dr. Shealy's been as great an influence on my research. And I wanted to thank you, Dr. Shealy. You don't even know how many people you help that just listen and don't necessarily contact you. But you don't know me by Dawns to you, too. You know me by my real name. And
how many names do you have?
Well, I've taken an online name for really emergency reasons to protect my identity online. I don't need any dross. But
right.
But when I'm speaking on a different level, then of course I'm completely transparent and give my real name. And I contacted you originally for my mom because I was interested in the scalar energy for her. And I was also interested in the C60, but I wanted to compare. I needed somebody with your expertise to look her full situation over. And so we didn't get her started on it. And Dr. Shealy, she passed before I got her started on either of those. But I started on the C60 shortly after she passed. And I heard Vince speaking and about his significant other, Mrs., and I have noticed my hair is growing like crazy. My nails are growing like crazy on just the C60. And I haven't gotten to the scalar yet, but I'm highly interested in that. And how I can get in on that field of energy.
Well, basically, it's available on our website. And all you have to do is plug it in and have it 3 or 4 feet away from your bed, but directed towards your body.
Wow.
That's what I like about
you. Let a computer anywhere near her. Unless I was playing a radio show on the computer, then that was okay because it was a radio on the computer.
Right.
And she was 94 when she passed, Dr. Shealy.
Well, that's
and you contacted me back and acknowledged her obituary, and I was supposed to get set up with you and Kendall, and she left, and I got dissuaded and didn't get in touch with you directly other than by email.
Well,
So Vince has my real phone number, and that might link everything for you to keep my protecting my ID a little bit on air, just because I'm a girl and I feel more comfortable that way. I don't know if I'm right or wrong.
Well, I'm always open. You know, I love to do whatever I can to help people, and it just takes a few minutes of time. That's
wonderful. Well, would there be any advantage to having, say, if it's a field, can you give me an idea of what the field range is? Well, according to our engineer, it's 25 feet. But I have mine approximately 3 feet away from the bed on a bedside table. Very good. Well, that pretty much, I have to go through the Internet now to do the follow-up on this, but also, again, let me take this moment to thank you for your research, and then you do the application on yourself, and that's the way I've been doing things, and I just wanted to confirm that my nails and hair are growing like crazy. Well, and you got the secret to hair and nails. Well, I didn't intend it for that. It was C60, the C60 oil that I started, that I noticed the change on, and I hadn't exposed myself to scalers. So since there was a research question there, sometimes often I'm prompted to want to throw in with your guys' information, and I've just not been inclined to do so until for some reason recently.
Dawn, I can tell you that I am taking C60, 15 drops a day, but Mrs. Finelli is not. But Mrs. Finelli and I are both exposed for about 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours a day to the scalar energy in the bedroom, Dr. Shealy's scalar energy. So and I'm experiencing rapid nail growth as well and hair growth. So I don't see it as completely the C60 because Mrs. Finelli has the same hair growth and nail growth, and she's not taking C60. But I'm not either. But she is, yeah.
Oh, you're not either, Dr. Shealy.
No, I've played with it in the past, but I've not been taking it for a long time.
Well, I've only recently started it. Probably it's been about, I'd say roughly 6 months for me.
Right.
And I felt instant change in my system.
Now, when you say instant, you mean within a day?
I felt it as soon as I had it in my mouth.
Wow. Now, okay, so how do you consume it? Do you swish it around for 30 seconds, or do you just swallow it down?
I did another thing. I've been experimenting a little bit with it. Dr. Miller, Rick, I like Doc Ram with him. I just like that way to refer to him, Doc Ram, if you don't mind. And he had mentioned the exclusion zone water, and then that started leading me into distilled water. So what I was actually doing was doing C60 under the tongue and in places where I had bad teeth or felt like they were still possibly to be saved teeth, and did that, and cheeks and all of that, made sure I had a good spread, and then I did a distilled water chaser, but I'd only put into my system somewhere between 6 and 16 ounces a day of that, and regular, very highly filtered Berkey shungite water for a chaser after that. And a lot of these tips were given to me through listening.
Through USA Prepares?
Well, a part of them were. I wouldn't say for sure every single thing, because if Mom had me listening to more than one network. But GNC, yeah, that was a biggie.
Yeah, one of the proponents of Carbon 60, Doc Ram, And also, Stephen Hewer. Stephen Hewer is one of our instructors, and he has been experimenting with C60 as well. And he sent me some, and I'm consuming that, and I think it's great. Now the question is, what's it going to do long term? I had an immediate response, not quite as fast as yours, but I felt better within a day. I really did.
Yeah.
And so, but I also do some other things. I take Dr. Shealy's youth formula, which I have a bottle in front of me, and I wanted to ask him about that. And is that, Dr. Shealy, your youth formula, which has 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and it has MSM, 1,000 milligrams, and it has molybdenum, 60 micrograms. Is that one of your single favorite supplements? So if you're just going to take one, would that be it?
Well, if I were only going to take one, it would be Dr. Shealy's Essentials, because that gives you the B complex.
Okay.
I'm writing while you're talking, gentlemen, so I've got that. Dr. Shealy's
Essentials. That's the multivitamin mineral.
Okay.
But now I
both
believe
the minerals and vitamins in it. And that's the other thing. Can I pitch in on that C60, a cautionary tale?
Mm-hmm.
You're driving a lot of good things into your body, but we've had quite the accumulation of a lot of negative things that have accumulated in places in our body. And my purpose with the C60 may not be a long-term event. It may be that I'm wanting to clear out all the free radicals and the things that build up in the negative charged electron ship that goes on within every organism, and I just felt like I wanted to flush that and try and get out some things as much as putting in the good things. So I wouldn't say I'm on anything as good as I used to be when I had a larger income, but I'm on semi-good things that are going in. And I found that the iodine supplement was extremely important. I was low on iodine, and people need to look at that. And then the other thing I would say is drink plenty of actually you-filtered, it's good water. That's the important thing, the filtered water. And then any enhancements that go with that. But I would say that the flushing out and emptying the system of these things is as important as taking the supplements into them. But because the C60 nature and let's see, what am I trying to say? The kind of water that I'm trying to say. Some of these waters will cause you to drain out some of the very supplements and nutrients that you have in you. So that's my cautionary tale. If you take anything, you need to be caution in how you apply it and see how your system's going to respond to it. After you've had someone else be kind of a monitor for you. I think it's real important to do that. And that's my mention on that. You don't want to overdo the C60 and take stuff out that needs to stay in and too much flushing. But one of the advantages to the C60 is it doesn't supposedly affect those things. And I thought my mom, being on medications, could have taken it, but we didn't get that much research done before I was looking for the specialized water. And I just recently heard about distilled water, so I haven't done a lot of research on that, but I had been taking the filtered water and shungite water.
Dawns, would you like to hold through the break and continue some of this discussion?
Well, actually, I will, but I'd also be happy to listen to comments offline, whichever you prefer, Vince. You're the host.
Well, I've got a couple comments. I'm pretty sure Dr. Shealy does as well, and it'd be nice if you were here to comment on our comments.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, normshealy.com. And Dawn's to You is with us on the phone. And I've got a couple comments I'd like to make. But first, let's hear from Dr. Shealy. Dr. Shealy, do you have any additional comments about what Dawn has said about C60 and water?
No, I think it's, like everything else. With anything, you can overdo it or underdo it, and everything needs to be titrated to the individual. I mean, some people can take 10,000 units of vitamin C orally, but most people cannot go above 5,000, for instance.
Okay. Well, I'm at about 6,000 units of vitamin C with your youth formula, and I wanted to tell those who are in class today that I love your youth formula. Now, this is not a commercial class. This is an endorsement. So when I feel pain, I'm looking for the youth formula. I really am. And within about a half an hour or so, my particular pain in my chest goes away, and I'm feeling less and less pain over time. So the combination of turmeric and curcumin and your youth formula, I see as a godsend, Dr. Shealy. Does that ring true with what you've learned?
Yes, no question about it. Vitamin C is second only to vitamin D as an immune enhancer.
So if someone has a disease, should they consider being on vitamin C?
Oh, yes. I think you should consider it even if you don't have a disease, to try to prevent a disease.
Okay. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, I can still visualize my father saying, and I can hear him saying in my mind, you've got the beginnings of a cold, vitamin C. Vitamin C, vitamin C, vitamin C. Now back then it was only 60 milligrams. Now we're looking at 1,000 a day, and it seemed like even the 60 milligrams back then, which was the recommended dose, seemed to work fine. But I would take more than that. I would take like 4 over a course of a day, maybe even 6 60 milligram tablets of ascorbic acid or vitamin C a day. One of the things I wanted to mention was we have a well here, and Dawn's, I wanted you to hear this as well. I've been advocating those who have well water to consider shocking their well. What that means is adding chlorine, not scented chlorine. Now, some people might use like HTH, powdered chlorine tablets, and just drop that in the well. I don't want to do that. So I use the liquid chlorine bleach, the same stuff that you might use in your washing machine. Not scented, not lemon scented or any other scented, just plain old chlorine bleach. And I've read that you put 4 ounces down the well, flush 10 gallons more of water down there so that it gets all the way down the bottom of your well, and it will disinfect the well, kill the bacteria in the well. Well, I did that. And before you do that, class, you've got to have a source of water that you're going to be able to drink, because when you do this, you're going to have chlorine in your water, a lot of chlorine in your water. And it will smell like city water, maybe even worse. Well, here's what I found out. After I did that, within a week, our 5-micron water filter plugged up. Now, normally, we have to change that every couple of months. It filled up with particles very, very quickly. And I attribute that to the dead bacteria and organisms getting clogged in the filter. That's what I attribute it to. Now, I don't know if that's it or not, but that's what happened. Dr. Shealy, do you have any comments on that? Plugging up the sediment filter, the 5-micron filter, after chlorinating the well. Any thoughts, Dr. Shealy, on that? All right. We'll be right back after these few short commercial announcements. And my thought was that there was so many dead bacterium in the water that they just plugged up the well filter. We'll be right back.
Probably. Sounds like it.
Yeah. Dawns, would you like to hold through?
Sure.
Okay. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Shealy, our engineer, had your microphone potted down when I asked you about the results that I found with our water well by shocking it with chlorine and killing the bacteria. Do you think that's what it was that plugged up our filter, because nothing else had changed with our well?
That seems likely. we actually shocked our well once some years ago when we had to replace the pump.
Yeah. Okay. And Dawn's is with us. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, Dr. Shealy, in Dawn's presence is the AMA. Sometimes we'll hear...
One of the many jokes in this country.
My mother was a registered nurse and got her training in St. Louis, and this was back in the day when it was quite a deal to get it. And so I have run that course right along there with Dr. Shealy. It's a razor's edge. And I wanted to ask a question as a result. I'm glad you brought that up, Vince, because one of the things I had listed before I called this morning was we were hesitant to do anything with a woman in her 90s without checking it through and verifying it with someone that's as skilled as Dr. Shealy. So I wanted to thank him for that, and also to his support staff at his office being available to me after passing was life-altering and enlivening for me, which I don't think I'd be as steady now if I hadn't had it. And so I never got to the other steps, but one of the things I was going to ask about, and this I'm asking for the benefit of the listeners more because my mother's passed, but I was hesitant to do scalar energy on her because she had a pacemaker. And I wanted to do that kind of fine-tuning with Dr. Shealy before we exposed her to things. So I would experiment on me first. So I was the guinea pig sometimes on this. And we didn't hide things from her physician. We told him everything she did. And she was taking extra supplements and things, and it helped. And the vitamin C, yes, she was taking about the same amount as you, Vince, and vitamin D, that was a big deal. We were doing like 5,000 units of. And I've learned on this call, just listening on the call, what Dr. Shealy was saying. So that kind of gives you a start on my question is, what about scalar energy and pacemakers?
Well, I do not believe there's any harm in pacemakers. We've had some here at the clinic, and I wouldn't lay the unit on your chest, but as long as it's a foot or two away from you, I don't think you need to worry.
Well, I think if we have our way, those of us that have been listeners that listen off of one broadcast, there's maybe a couple of us that did, would be, at the end of the day, would be very interested in accessing that over the internet through the computer and broadcasting it, like Vince said, before the end of the day is over for tonight. That's how interested I think the parties listening right now that I know of.
Unfortunately, I don't know how to. I'd have to ask our engineer friend, Luke. I don't know any way we can broadcast it through a computer.
So how is it broadcasted to Vince?
Well, we have individual units that are about 10 inches by 12 inches and about 3/4 of an inch thick.
Oh, electrical unit you plug in.
Yeah.
I see. Well, then I'm thinking before the end of the day I'm going to have to look into one of those on your website then.
Right. You'll find it under Sapphire Enhanced Adrenoscalar.
Well, that's what I needed to know. Sapphire Enhanced
Adreno, A-D-R-E-N-O, scalar.
Okay.
And let me explain for those who might not have heard us talking about this. This device is roughly the size of a sheet of copier or printer paper, roughly. And as Dr. Shealy said, it's about 3/4 of an inch thick. It has a little wall transformer you plug in with a very small, thin power cord. And the reason I'm mentioning that is it uses very, very little electricity, only a couple of watts. And we've got ours running 24/7 and have for months. And I believe we were one of the first to try this particular device. And I believe I had one of the few early model prototypes of the device. And so I've been using this for quite a while. And here's something that you might find fascinating. Dr. Shealy, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a dentist's office that I'm aware of that has one of your adreno-medullin sapphire-enhanced scalar devices, and they're using it to reduce anxiety in the dental chair, because a lot of people, have squeezed those armrests for all they can because of the anxiety. And so there's some experimentation going on in a dental office with your device at, let's say, 6 feet. Is that something?
Of course, and one of the things we did notice in all kinds of studies that we've done to date is that it does reduce anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this particular dental office asked me about it. He said, "Do you think it will work?" And I talked about what my reaction was, and they decided that based on what I had experienced, that they would try this and see how it works. Now, there's something that I've done that's a little different. I will actually, for a couple minutes, hold this device right up against my chest. If I find that I'm coughing because of this, we'll call it a disease that I have, that I believe I'm getting over it, I will hold your device against my chest, and my coughing will stop within a couple minutes. Has anyone else done that kind of experimentation, Dr. Shealy, with your device?
Well, actually, I slept with it right on my chest one night. Just to see, I didn't have any symptoms, and it didn't do anything different, but I just wanted to see what it did, and so I just laid it face down on my chest.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so did you see, and are you saying you did not see any difference between having it at a couple feet away versus on your chest?
Exactly. But then I don't have any symptoms, so...
Yeah, nothing to fix.
Right.
Okay. And I wanted to mention to Dawn's, you use the term Doc Ram. You like that for Dr. Richard Allen Miller. DOC for Dr. Ram for Richard Allen Miller. Now, my mom used to refer to Dr. Miller when he would come to the house, and he's been here many, many times. She referred to him as Ricky Rocket.
That's where that came from.
Yeah, that's why I like Doc Ram, all right.
Is Ricky Rocket coming? Is he going to be here? And he's a real hoot. And class, if you're wondering what Ricky Rocket is like in person, it's just like he is on the air, and so is Norm Shealy. Norm Shealy is just like he is on the air. Norm Shealy does not act. He is himself. Well, I've never seen you act, Dr. Shealy. You are the same person. Every time I see you, you're the same person. No embellishment, no enhancements. Yeah, well, and that's good. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention this, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, being blunt. Homeland Security takes exception to those of us who are blunt, and they are, they say they want to build a database of people who are influencers. And I think that they're using that term to describe us who are on the air, that we are influencing people's behavior, and they want to create a database. I'm sure they already have a database. They just want to let us know they're listening even more intently than we thought they were, which we believe is they've been listening for years and years and years, and they're recording everything that we're saying. But they've now announced through the mass media that they want to have a database of people who are activists, people who are on the radio, people who are commentators, people who do what we do. So, Dr. Shealy, just wanted to let you know that, and Dawn's, we are on the list.
Well, I kind of think you're correct and accurate on the fact that my mother inadvertently got herself on the list, and I've heard of other people recently that have been dealing with the technological issues that are being used against humanity instead of, like Dr. Shealy's doing, using technology on behalf of humanity. It all goes back to the very what I would say is the root that comes through on practically everything you're doing, Vince and Dr. Shealy and Doc Ram and your mother. Rest her soul in peace. That she had the wherewithal to pay attention, and my mom in her 90s was noticing things in the sky she hadn't seen before and listening to radio and keeping updated to an extent that I didn't even know was possible for people in their 90s. And lived a quality life, you know. So there is a strong energy that is in the negative use, and it's like shungite. You could throw a shungite rock at somebody, or you can put it in your water, and it can do some more purifying after you've filtered it, or not. But that is kind of what I called in for with Doc Ram. Is it begins with the frequency and the energy, and he says intention.
Yes, he does. Yeah. When we come back, I'd like to mention a couple of thoughts I had about the AMA. And my experiences. Dawn, you're certainly welcome to stay with us if you'd like.
Thank you. I'll take your invitation.
All right, we'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and Dawn's is with us. And I wanted to mention a couple of things that came to mind about the AMA. So Dr. Shealy, when I go to the doctor's office, for a checkup or something, the nurse will look at her computer screen and she'll say, okay, and I'm paraphrasing here. This is not exactly how it goes, but it's close. So, Vincent, are you still taking iodine, serapeptase, D3, carbon-60, oregano, colloidal silver, allicin, and astaxanthin? Yep. and those are... And they're asking me because they know I'm taking them because I tell them, but I don't think they totally agree with that. And then we called the doctor's office, and I wanted to try a different, add another protocol. And the answer was, that's not AMA approved. That's not AMA approved. So, Dr. Shealy, what is it about the AMA that if they don't approve of it as a treatment for a specific problem, that doctors, I'm not talking about Dr. Shealy, I'm talking about other doctors, what is it that is with the AMA that they're so concerned about? Do they get fined? Do they lose their license to practice medicine? What happens?
All license purchase.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah. Let Dr. Shealy go first, please.
Virtually all censorship, including withdrawal of your license, comes through the American Medical Association, the State Medical Association, or the County Medical Association, and they are all part of the AMA. Now, the AMA, in my opinion, has been part of the evil empire since at least the early 1900s. They had one of the most evil men in the history of the world as the Tsar for many, many years.
Okay, and so, Dr. Shealy, would you have any problems from those in the AMA saying, well, wait a minute, scalar energy, that's not on our list. That's not, we don't even have an item.
I can't say on the radio what I will tell them, but you can guess.
Yeah. Dawn, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was ignorant enough to ask. I asked the AMA, and my mom was very much, she kept traditional to her training, and she'd step a little bit outside the box here and there, but she pretty much called the shots, and she did with her doctors and what pills, and I've been through watching her go through the list like you're describing, Vince, and all of that. And basically, I was going to jump in and say, Don't ask Dr. Shealy, ask the AMA or somebody like yourself that's gone through it. If there's doctors that are even wanting to, their intention in their heart space is to go that direction, they're restricted. It's about like what's happening with Trump, and he's lessening the restrictions on business so that it can start having some breathing room, and that's about what needs to be done on the same course with these AMA. If people want to take care of themselves, and rather than not be taken care of at all, then how's that working against anyone's interests? That would make the country great too, wouldn't it?
You're asking common sense questions which are not common.
Well, it's Vince. He brought it up. He's seen it.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me, from my vantage point, that when they ask me these questions and then the nurse relays the information to the doctor, that they're actually learning from what I'm saying. Because they haven't heard.
Mom. They loved Mom coming in because she just talked right up to them. She wasn't intimidated. She wasn't scared. Mm-hmm. She felt like she was among family because she was a top-notch nurse. Mm-hmm. And when they found they got a little dose of Mom, she was spicy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know what was really interesting to me was they had no one that I talked to other than Dr. Shealy or Bill Deagle or someone in the medical profession that, as a doctor. No one knew about carbon-60. Nobody knew about it. I thought that was quite interesting. When we come back, Dr. Shealy, I'd like to ask you about iodine and what your thoughts are. Dawn, feel free to stay with us for the rest of the broadcast. We'll be right back. Yeah, so just one more little piece of information about the AMA. So I mentioned, at least 6 months ago, to actually several medical professionals, nurses, doctors. So what do you think about Myers cocktails? So, really? You you want to go drinking? And Dr. Shealy, no medical professional, none, not one, in our area of the world knew what a Myers cocktail was. Not one. I was absolutely shocked.
You can't see me, Vince, but I'm raising my hand. I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Here we go. Dr. Shealy, would you share with those who are in class today what a Myers cocktail is? And by the way, I have had several of them, and I'll tell you what my reaction is when we hear what Dr. Shealy has to say.
Well, a Myers cocktail includes 100 milligrams of B complex, an extra 100 milligrams of B6, 250 milligrams of dexpanthenol, 1 gram of calcium chloride, and 2 to 4 grams of magnesium chloride, and it includes however much vitamin C we want to put in, anywhere from 10 grams to 100 grams of vitamin C. It's given over a 2 to 3 hour period intravenously.
And I can tell you that there are several reactions. One is you'll have to urinate like every few minutes. Maybe every 5 minutes. Once you start having to urinate, you won't stop for the entire duration of the Myers cocktail. And my experience was my pain went to like almost zero, from real severe pain to almost zero. And I called my son and I said, hey, I think I said I'm 20 years younger. So get ready. We got a lot of stuff we got to do when I get back. So I go, oh yeah. It's literally the fountain of youth. And if you want the best example that I can think of as a visualization, if you remember Hillary Clinton, she was falling down the stairs. She was falling up the stairs. I'm talking about just before the alleged presidential debates with Donald Trump. And, people had to hold her up. She had trouble getting into a vehicle, out of a vehicle. She was a physical wreck. Well, at the last alleged debate, her performance was superb. I'm not saying I agree with her. What I'm saying is her mental acuity, her physical performance was superb. However, and she was traveling with her physician. Her physician was in tow. Or actually, her physician was holding her up. And people saw her pantsuit, and they saw this line on her pantsuit, and many believed it was a catheter. And that would be pretty much necessary to stay on stage for the amount of time that she was there for the debate. And there were comments that she would not use the restroom if anyone else were in the restroom. Okay? So I'm not talking about guys being in the ladies' restroom. I'm saying if a lady was in the ladies' room, Hillary Clinton would not go in. And that's what was reported. So I kind of think that outstanding performance was a medical miracle. And the kind of experience I had when I had a Myers cocktail. It was, to me, the fountain of youth for a few days. Dr. Shealy, would you say that was accurate, the way I've described it?
Oh, yes. I mean, it makes most people feel remarkably energized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Dawn, if you want to reset your immune system, that's worth considering. It's an IV, and literally what you do is you get a needle in your arm, and you have this drip, 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 drip of 500 cc's of saline with the enhancements that Dr. Shealy talked about for a couple hours. I prefer to have it slower than faster. I would prefer 2 hours rather than an hour and a half. I'd prefer 2.5 hours, really, or 3 hours, if that's if it's possible. And it's the neatest thing. And I found myself racing around. I had a bundle of energy, and it was really neat. It got me through a pretty tough patch. It was great. It was really, really great. So that's the Myers cocktail. And class, so if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to YouTube. You can go to the Ron Gibson, Gibson channel on YouTube. You can search Vincent Finelli, Dr. Shealy, Shealy, and Myers cocktail, Myers cocktail. And I did a broadcast with Dr. Shealy about that, probably close to a year ago, and you'll hear my reaction just after it happened. So what you heard just now was a little dated, but you'll hear darn close to an immediate reaction to my experience to the Dr. Shealy's Myers cocktail.
Well, I've got to say that is a very taken-to-heart recommendation, Vince, and I thank you for going into the detail about it because I hadn't even heard the term.
Well, it's absolutely phenomenal. And I believe that if you watched Hillary Clinton, I believe that her performance was just like my experience being on a Myers cocktail. Extraordinary. And, if you put all those pieces together about how she came from really poor performance, poor health, poor everything, to a stellar performance on stage at the alleged debates. Not that I agreed with anything she said, because I didn't, but her performance was pretty outstanding, considering what she had to work with.
Well, I think you're real astute, Vince. I think it's interesting that you're seeing the energy and the performance. I think that's a real good level that you're pointing to.
I'm wondering if she was smoking pot, but I think that's what it would take for her. But that's just my opinion.
You're joking, Dr. Shealy.
Of course I am.
So, Dr. Shealy, iodine. And one of the things that I've mentioned to a medical doctor was that I'm consuming iodine. And it seems like they're very interested in iodine. Why? I don't know. Because I remember... Well, I remember back in the 1950s going to a medical doctor, as a child, and he would say, open up, meaning open my mouth, stick out your tongue. I'd stick out my tongue. He would put in the tongue depressor, which was a common thing. I mean, if you went to a doctor's office, they'd look in your eyes, look in your ears, feel your throat, your glands. You'd stick out your tongue depressor would go in, you'd almost gag, and they'd go, okay. But this one particular doctor had a sprayer. It was a sprayer he'd squeeze with his thumb and forefinger, a little DeVilbiss sprayer. It was loaded with iodine, and the back of my throat would get sprayed with iodine. That was just, whenever I went, that's what happened. But today, I don't see any of those sprayers, and I have not experienced that in the last 20 years. No one has done it. Dr. Shealy, is that what's going on?
Well, 80% of Americans are deficient in iodine. We have an epidemic of hypothyroid because of lack of iodine, and it is aggravated, of course, by the poison fluoride.
Okay, so what is the amount of iodine that a person should take, and can it be taken? We buy iodine for our cows. Sometimes they get their legs banged up, and sometimes they get cut, and they really don't want us to bandage them. As a matter of fact, they won't even hold still for it. So we would have to lasso them and tie them to a tree and tie their legs together to help them. So what we do is we have a squirt gun, and it's more like one of those bottles that hold about a quart, and you can adjust the nozzle so it's either a mist or a stream, and we set it to a stream where we can get within maybe 5 feet, and we spray the iodine on their wounds. Is that iodine that we would spray, which would be triple iodine, is that the same as a person would get for human health, or is it different?
Well, for human health, you need a combination, ideally, of iodine itself and potassium iodide. That combination is better absorbed. Now, we found back in the 90s that when we evaluated the 80% of our people who walked into the office with a low temperature, they were all deficient in iodine. And it took 1.5 milligrams a day to restore their thyroid function. So basically, 10 to 12 milligrams total of iodine a week is adequate to restore it in most people.
Okay. Let me share with the class what I'm doing. So I take iodine as well. And one of the things that I've experimented with was I take about 10 milliliters of saline, sterilized saline solution, normal saline. I'll add a few drops of iodine, and I will put that in an electronic nebulizer, and I'll inhale it, and then hold my breath. And I'll do that 3 times a day. Do you have any comments on that, Dr. Shealy?
Well, if you take too much, it can block the thyroid's ability to take up iodine. One of the things that's been recommended since World War II. I'll continue afterwards.
Yeah. We're talking about iodine. Dawn's is with us. She's in Missouri. We'll be right back. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about iodine and the World War II era.
Introduced nuclear energy, which is the most stupid thing humanity has ever done. They wanted everybody to keep in their household tablets of iodine that would contain at least 50 milligrams of iodine, because if we had a radioactive blast, the radioactive iodine in the air would attack your thyroid and kill it. And so if you take 50 milligrams all at once, it'll block the ability of the thyroid to take up any iodine for some period of time. So there is a limit to how much you can safely take and not actually interfere with thyroid function. But 12.5, I always recommend people start with 12.5 milligrams once a week. And gradually they can increase that, once a month until they get thyroid back to normal function if possible.
Okay, so if someone does not have enough iodine, many of us are not eating much fish because of the plastic pollution and the pollution in the seas, the radiation and so forth. If we're not eating foods with iodine, is there, what is the best way to take it? Is it orally? Is it, orally. Can we just brush? Okay. What about taking a Q-tip and pasting some, on your skin?
Now, one way to find out if you're deficient in iodine is to put some tincture of iodine on your skin, and if it's absorbed in less than 24 hours, it means you're deficient.
Okay, so does that mean that the visible evidence on your skin would disappear?
Yes.
Okay, so that brown spot would disappear. Okay, so if I have some on a Q-tip, how much should I apply?
About 1 inch square.
Okay. And would it be harmful to paint the same spot day after day after day, or do I need to have different spots? What do you recommend?
It would probably get irritating to the skin because it can cause inflammation of the skin if you overdo it.
Okay. And what are the symptoms of not having enough iodine?
Well, low energy is number one.
That's everybody. That's
right.
Everybody, Dr. Yeah.
Speak for yourself, Vincent.
Well, I mean, I haven't met anyone who said, wow, I've got so much energy. Most people say, I can't remember, I can't get up, I'm tired all the time. That's what most people are telling.
At 85 years of age, I still have the energy I had at age 26, so I don't fit into that category.
Yeah.
My great-grandmother used to be 102. I met at 101, and she said, Bud, I feel just as good as I did when I was 16. So it runs in my family.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on oregano? That's another thing that I take, Dr. Shealy. I will take oil of oregano, and I will mix it with tomato juice, and I'll take that several times a day. What are your thoughts about oil of oregano?
It is a good, it is a good energizer, yes.
How about as a natural antibiotic?
There's some evidence for that, yes.
How about garlic? You can buy Allicin, Allicin, and that contains ultra concentrated garlic formula, or you can just eat garlic. What are your thoughts about just eating garlic? Because I bought 2 pounds of garlic.
One of the best.
Okay. Can I overdose on garlic?
Well, probably not. No Italian can overdose on garlic.
Yeah, I bought 2 pounds of it. And garlic is pretty light in weight, so... so I'm going to get some...
garlic. You ever tried elephant garlic? Yeah.
Yes, and that's what we're going to raise this summer. Dawn, thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Shealy, thanks so much for spending your time with us as well.